and impact. So when we think about food as a regenerative service, there's 4 aspects to our view of regenerative nutrition. So the first one is about, as I mentioned, this Amazon bioeconomy, essentially leveraging all of these different fruits and seeds and oils and taking them to the world so that the Amazon rainforest is valued and then less incentivized to be cut down. The second one has to do with superfoods, so where we can create really healthy food so people can become healthier and nourish themselves through the consumption of these products. And then also incorporating these green technologies into our supply chains, and that connects to the whole the impact of the food system, everything from renewable energy, biodegradable packaging, energy efficiency, et cetera. And then lastly, all these social technologies that we can work with these small farmers, and that they can really be the heart of this transformation, and that relates to all the social inclusion issues that we're talking about. So when we look at our ecosystem at Awi, we have in the middle we have this Amazon bioeconomy, and at the top we have eco farms, which are model farms where we work with regenerative agroforestry. We have factories that can process all these different fruits and seeds and oils and add value. And then we have the farmers and the cooperatives that are our partners that essentially build the whole supply chain. So as I mentioned before, the green technologies and the social technologies integrated, and then also partnerships with various government entities, universities, NGOs, to create a global brand where we can then distribute through various channels, both in Brazil and then globally. And then also we have a whole fintech arm as well, where we can work with the farmers, we can create bank accounts for them, et cetera. So anyway, so this is our new line of regenerative sorbets. So there's no sugar added. There's a mix of different superfoods, and we even have we've even put some zinc and selenium and vitamin C and A as well to enhance them, to make them even strengthen the immune system. So this is an example of our first line of products that can generate super healthy products and have positive impact on the planet. Here we have some pictures from our Eco Farm school up in Marajó Island, and essentially the idea here is this is a laboratory for regenerative practices. At the center of this, and Gustavo is going to talk a bit later, he's on the call here. The center of this, we have regenerative agriculture, which is an incredible model that's been developed by a Swiss man here, in a specific version of it called Synthropic that we're inspired by, where basically it's an agroforestry model. We plant all these different kinds of fruits and other crops integrated, and over time we're able to actually make the soil healthier. We don't depend on external inputs. So this is that's kind of the heart of our Eco Farm school. And then we have all these other regenerative technologies, solar panels, biodigesters. We're essentially using all these different green technologies, and also working with local universities. Here's a couple of our factories that are being renovated in partnership with cooperatives. The first one to focus on fruit pulps, and the second one more on nuts and seeds and oils without having to go through the cold chain. Here's a slide that shows our whole ecosystem, and we really believe it's about building an ecosystem. So we have everything from food techs to government entities, R&D, laboratories. We have blended finance involved with NGOs and working for grants so that we can work on training programs for the farmers who can then they can learn how to do these regenerative practices, and then they can be our suppliers. Partnerships with government and cooperatives, universities, et cetera. So that's a bit of our ecosystem. And then kind of how do we put this all together? Where we can generate value, and it's really about connecting. It's about connecting all these different aspects. So it's food tech, it's Amazon bioeconomy, regenerative agriculture, clean tech, blended finance, omni-channel, and regenerative DNA. And that's sort of our mix that we think it's about really creating a new system as opposed to trying to just create one specific aspect of it. And that's what can create change. So anyway, what we say is the more you're nourished, better the river people's lives, and the more the Amazon thrives. So thank you. Hope to be in the US in a few months, and you'll be able to try our sorbets as well.
Yay, amazing. That is Awi Superfoods and Derek Gallo. Hey, Derek, that is amazing. Thank you so much. I don't know if the audience has any quick questions. for Derek. There's a quick Q&A session for anybody that has some questions. We're opening up maybe a Q&A here. There's a Q&A section. Not sure how it works too much, but you want to type them in here? There we go. Q&A. I love sorbet. What is your favorite flavor? Okay, we got that one. Let's see. Answer live.
Well,
we would like
my
to answer
favorite
this
is
question
our
live.
superfood sorbet, which is our main product. So it's got it has acai, it has sweet potatoes. We use the orange sweet potatoes, which actually are not that common in Brazil. So full of all the beta carotenes. It's got the acai has all the antioxidants and minerals. We also have camu camu, super rich in vitamin C, and we even have sour sop as well, which is another amazing fruit. So that's probably going to be our all-time favorite.
Yeah, it's really good. Which is the one that I have at my house, Derek?
That's the acai based sorbet.
Yeah, amazing. I really love it. Full of flavor. Michelle asked you to please get to Hawaii soon. Actually, our partner Haley was just left Hawaii.
What island? We have many friends in Maui. Well, all of Hawaii. I think it's a great idea. We definitely just need to figure out logistics out there. It's a long way.
Michelle says Waikiki and Oahu.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you. Mission received.
Derek, quick question. How long have you been working on this project, and what's your talking about geographies? What's your plan to expand within the Amazon and maybe beyond?
So it's been 4 years now that we started. We started with the Eco Farm School 4 years ago, planting. We still have, in terms of our product going around the world, that we to start exporting later this year. But in terms of actually expanding let's say our agriculture or our factories, I would say we probably we're first working on getting these two running in Marajó Island. We're probably a couple of years away from thinking about other international markets in terms of putting in factories and expanding. But we do have ambitions to take this model globally and also partner with other farmers around the world, where we could potentially produce our foods locally in other countries, mixing some of the products from Brazil with the locally produced regenerative agriculture products.
Great. I think those are all the questions for now, Derek. Thank you so much for your amazing presentation and your incredible work down in the Amazon, from New York to the Amazon. Incredible life story and incredible life journey. It's a great privilege to be on it with you.
Thanks so much. Hope to have you come visit in Marajó Island.
All right, guys, there you go. Open invite to Marajó Island. And Derek is an amazing person to hang out with. If you've ever been with a living being that knows how to enjoy life, it's definitely Derek. So I'd encourage you guys to go pay a visit if you can. Next up, we have Abuelo Antonio. I don't know if Abuelo Antonio has been able to connect. Abuelo Antonio, let's see, do we have a representative on for Abuelo? For those of you that might not know, right, Abuelo is one of the representatives and one of the elders of the Mayan people. He is the governor of the Mayans in the Yucatan Peninsula, and has been working on an incredible amount of work focused on regeneration. He has this beautiful plot of land, and our team down in Mexico in Tulum has been working to connect him with, and they've been working with all the local hotels and restaurants to bring food. Incredible story of all of what's possible in terms of not just regeneration, but multiple generation. And one of the conversations that Abuelo Antonio shared with us was that over the last 9 years, by the way, he's from this ancient village called Cispechen, and his whole thing is helping souls through the healing process, and feels that in different levels, the physical, emotional, and soul, through different techniques that are necessary. But ultimately, food plays a very important part of that. And he has a nonprofit called Jardines del Colibrí Dorado, which he's the president of, with the objective of promoting economic, cultural, and the health of the Mayan community. He's made us aware that over hundreds of years, the Mayans have forgotten the best practices of cultivating the land, and are using, eating junk food and using pesticides and basically looking to bring back the older traditions and introduce them back to the Mayan community, back into the value add services. Say that in 2021, this year, he was appointed, like I mentioned, governor of the Mayan community. Um, so we believe that there's an incredible cultural identity. We're going to be working with him. If anybody's interested, you can send us some notes and information. Somebody here put a WhatsApp group on this chat. I'm also going to go ahead and share with you guys what's called the Green Economy Club that we have on LinkedIn. And the Green Economy Club is really meant to be this collective of people focused on regeneration, regenerative real estate, and everything that's circularity and impact focused amongst the green economy. So I'll be dropping that link for you guys to take a look at. It's a LinkedIn group called Green Bonds and Green Economy Club. There's also this WhatsApp group that was formed. So just so you guys have a little bit of access to that, and we can connect a little bit on with Abuelo later on. So that's our 2 cents with Abuelo. He's looking for a lot of support with the expansion of his land and regenerating it. He has an incredible story of how people have been able to learn and work with him, then go buy their lands and start creating regenerative agriculture with best practices themselves. But next up, we have Rob. Rob is on deck. Rob, if you'd like to step up for this. Rob's super interesting. We got a chance to hang out here in Miami. He lives up in Mandala Springs in North Carolina. He's a global leader in holistic systems movement. Been super passionate about this. When he told me that he had this, as a little kid, his dream was to focus on, what he didn't have the words for it, but effectively this regenerative land projects, regenerative real estate. He has a multifaceted approach to creating and implementing new systems to culture. The embodiment of sustainable businesses have established him as a vital forerunner in restructuring of global civilizations and ecosystem stewardship. Rob is the founder of CEO of Mandala Naturals and Mandala Chocolate, Mandala Springs, and Convergence Lifestyles, 3 projects that embody the cutting-edge ideals, systems, and technologies represented in this holistic approach. And now, having spearheaded a multi-million-dollar projects in both the for-profit and non-profit space, as a conservationist and agroecologist, as well as pioneering an entire certified organic industry for public lands in the US, Rob has proven the tools to share innovative advantages of his unique lifestyles with others. So we're using focus on creating the most nutritious chocolate in the world with Mandala Chocolate, by the way, delicious. I really love all his healthy chocolate. On his 67-acre farm and growing. He's focused on human empowerment, eco-adventure retreat center that he's doing also on the farm. It's an organic forest farm, and teaching the Hof method of breathing, and is a certified instructor by Wim Hof, slackline yoga, etc. So anyway, I don't want to keep talking about Rob. Rob, I do you no justice. Maybe it's better for you to introduce and talk a little bit about all the things that you do, and maybe bring us to the forefront of all your amazing work. It's really great, not just to be a friend of yours, but also to be a client with your amazing chocolate, which brings me so much joy. Rob?
Great. Can you hear me? Is this working?
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to join you from here at Mandala Springs. And just to kind of build on what Silvio just mentioned, appreciate that introduction. That was really nice. I'm an agroecologist, and I've been working especially with indigenous communities in Central America and the specific wild ecosystem that we have here in Southern Appalachia. Where I am located right here in Southern Appalachia, North Carolina, has the highest biodiversity of anywhere in the entire subtropical world. And, there's people that have lived here their entire lives and have absolutely no idea that they live in the pocket of the greatest biodiversity in the subtropical world. And it kind of models the same issue that was just spoken of, which is there's a very strong cultural problem right now in understanding the indigenous best practices how to properly utilize the local ecosystem, how to protect the soil microbiology, how to utilize not only the ancient and old local practices, but we have this unprecedented opportunity to combine and refine some of the best practices that have been developed all over the world. We have an opportunity to, to basically create global food practices that combine the newest technology, the newest understanding of plant and soil science, which is expanding every single day. We could do a 3-hour talk on just that by itself. And the new technologies, the understanding of the plants and soils, and then the understanding of the tried and true, proven indigenous systems for agriculture. So one of the ways that I've been able to personally have an impact in this industry is, first and foremost, I have Mandala Naturals, Mandala Chocolate. And so one of the most important things that we can do as Westerners, as people who have an immense amount of privilege and an immense amount of opportunity and capacity, is create businesses like Awi is a good example as well, that support local indigenous farmers and communities and are actively helping them to develop permaculture systems, sustainable gray water systems, creating food sovereignty, starting to learn more about what their local agricultural systems, like, speaking of like the Mayan people, for example, I've spent a lot of time working with a lot of Mayan people, and I've worked in deep places where, they don't even speak Spanish, and they're very much agricultural people, and they do understand the land to a degree, but a lot of it has come, a lot of the old knowledge has been lost. A lot of the knowledge of the just rich biodiversity and the wild foods and what the wild ecosystem is providing has been lost. So I think there is a fundamental and foundational need to help people to rediscover basically their ancient practices, their ancient relationship to the land, start to realize what these foods and medicines are. And what's beautiful as an ecologist is you see that no matter where you go in the world, when you're working with a forest ecosystem, you have specific families of specific communities of plants. Somebody's calling me. Excuse me one moment there. Okay, so okay, where was I? One moment. So
different communities of plants.
Yes, gotcha. So, they basically all over the world, you have these same communities of plants, and you can start to see that even if you're looking at species that you've never seen before, that these specific families have these different properties and play this role not only in the plant communities and the mushroom communities, but play a role for the people. So starting to create systems of cultural knowledge that can be easily passed from place to place is really, really important. And so Mandala Naturals, Mandala Chocolate, which is my company, one of the things that we do is we're working directly with the farmers that are growing, for example, the cacao, and growing the various superfoods that we're using, that we're sourcing from all over the world. And we're working with them to help them to reestablish a healthy, sustainable, multi-crop forest farming type of situation, so that they are restructuring and restoring the land. They're rebuilding their soils and their soil microbiology, and they're starting to basically restore the climate, the microclimate in their regions. There's a lot of places on Earth right now where we have, you're asking me to wrap up. So, so basically I think we're on a panel, so there's going to be some more. Essentially, the culture and being able to create standardized systems that we can bring to each community and each ecosystem that will help them to start to actively reestablish that connection to their native environment and the food sources that are available to them there. Silvio, you're muted. I'm not sure.
Hey, okay, perfect. Yes, we're now in terms of best practices. I think it might be helpful to give a quick intro. Rob, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that that conversation. Somebody that I think is Gustavo, if you're around, I think would be a great person to also introduce into the mix. Gustavo, another panelist on this, has been dedicated to agroecology and community development in Brazil since 2007. He studied permaculture in the National Environmental Centre in Australia under the Australian Endeavour Scholarship. And he's an International Student of the Year at an SW Government Award in 2019 for developing and integrating successional and multi-stratified agroforestry systems with permaculture practices. Today, he's working in various projects in Brazil, seeking more resilient communities and more regenerative agriculture like Awi Superfoods, which we got to hear Derek present on earlier today. TAFE NSW National Environment Center student Gustavo has been honored for a lot of his economic achievement, received a lot of awards, has certifications in permaculture from TAFE NSW National Center. Anyway, has a lot of incredible amount of experience as a student over there in Brazil, has been working in Africa, has been working in the Brazilian Amazon now for a decade. So I think that he offers a really well-rounded perspective of, like Rob was saying, different communities around the world having different opportunities and different families of plants that work together. So Gustavo, maybe you can shed a little bit of light on this.
Thank you very much, Silvio. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you guys. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So I've been, as I said, I have been working for more than 15 years now with different agroecology techniques. And I want to talk about the fundamentals first, because it's easy to get into synthropic farming or permaculture or biodynamic farming and start to split ourselves. So it doesn't matter how you call the fundamental of all these kinds of techniques. The backbone is agroecology. And agroecology is the science that tries to mimic nature. So we pretty much see what is working on nature, like as a laboratory for millions of years, and trying to replicate in an agricultural system. So first thing is soil. Soil is like a really serious thing that we don't give the importance, Runoff is a major problem, so we have to cover soil. We have like to make the soil a luxurious environment for soil life. Modern agriculture, organic or not, doesn't believe the fertility is in the nature processes. Just believe that the fertility is in the stores. They buy the fertility, buy nutrients from somewhere else, make the soil poor, and next year you have to buy it again. So agroecology is pretty much life processes based agriculture instead of an input based agriculture. And that's how we are trying to achieve in Amazon with Awi Superfoods and other places. And these principles pretty much work everywhere. Doesn't matter where you are different techniques for specific environments, but the way of thinking is always the same, like how to bring diversity to the soil, how to avoid runoff, how to feed the soil, and we feed the soil life with organic matter. So in our case in Amazon, we grow a lot of trees that doesn't have a specific culture that you want, but just to chop down and become food for the soil. So instead of bring organic matter from somewhere else, we can just like use wood. This life will eat the wood and poo, and that poo from the microbials and worm will just feed the forests. It's very important to have diversity. Monoculture seems interesting in a machine perspective, you know, a machine that's going to harvest everything. It just wants all life beings be exactly the same in the same dimensions. Then you can just harvest it easily. But in nature, it doesn't work like that. Like we cannot, life is different, right? If we as human beings are exactly the same and show up a kind of coronavirus that can kill one of us, will kill all of us. So what makes us alive is our difference. And that's true for everything and cultures as well. So it's not a very smart idea to make like a corn and all corns exactly the same, because if one is vulnerable for something, all of them will be vulnerable. So we really like to have like a lot of diversity. Then we have like a diversity of bugs. Will come like some insects that eat the crops, but that insects that will eat the insects, they eat the crops. So we'll not have a problem because things will be in balance. So we pretty much want like diversity from different cultures together. Like in synthropic farming, we plant from the short cycle to the long cycle. We call like from garden to forests, like nature does, you know, like pioneers and fast ones. And this will release growth hormones in the soil, and the long cycle ones will grow faster. And also another aspect of agroecology is decentralization. If you have like a big farm from somewhere where everything comes from, that is easy. It's very vulnerable. You know, in Brazil, many years ago, we have like a truck drivers strike, and the big cities were in a mass situation. So more we can decentralize, like having bigger farmers or small farmers, everyone is important. Small farmers are really important, you know, all over the place. If we have like a problem with the weather, if we have a problem with a pest, or if we have a problem with politics, I don't know, you know, we just have like different areas with food all over. So it's much more resilient. Talking about techniques, like how to start regenerative farming if you are just like doing monoculture. Exotic plants play an important role in this kind as well. For example, in the Amazon, we are growing food in area that have been burned for years and years, and there's no fertility there anymore. And if you think like native species, they are the specialists of that situation. So if I just use like Amazon species in an area that's not Amazon anymore, has different water, has different organic matter, has different soil, and these species are used to a luxurious environment. But that's not luxury anymore. There's no carbon in the soil. So we can bring like species that are more tough, like Australian species, for example. Australia is a very old continent that having rain for millions of years washed most of the nutrients of the soil. So Australian species are really tough. And it's very hard to bring things away in Amazon. We use like boats, small boats, you know, we have like small rivers all over the place. So it would be a nightmare just to bring fertilizer. So we like to use like kind of species, Brazilian pioneers and not Brazilian ones, to grow the organic matter, put it down, and then feed the soil. And then with that organic matter, we start in the next cycle with these crops that we want. And like I could say also, like it's very like poetic, like how to keep the Amazon or how to keep any rainforest or any important biome, you know, the way it is. We also have to think there are people living in there, and instead of doing like just a permanent preservation area, you know, it's possible to find a model where that kind of people lived on the crops that are there naturally, and then they have to protect the area because they will need to harvest that. So I really believe the way of keeping the forests is like having the people there taking care of the place and make their income from the native plants like cocoa, acai berries, cupuaçu, all kinds of plants.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gustavo. I think that's awesome. And we have Abuelo Antonio here with us. Such an honor and a privilege. Abuelo Antonio, thank you for joining us. I know that you've been busy working all week, nonstop, so you look great today. Welcome.
Espera un momento, tenemos problemas con el audio. Un momento.
Okay, we're putting the audio on. Gustavo, I think that you brought up a lot of very interesting points on the agroecology. Gustavo, you received you received some awards for the work that you were doing on different layers of agroecology. Oh, I think we got Abuelo finally on. Abuelo, can you hear us? Quiten el... ¿No escucha? Can you hear us now?
I am listening a
right.
little bit, but please can you talk a little slow to understand much better the English?
Welcome,
Are
Abuelo.
you listening?
Yes.
Que traerlo.
Hi, Abuelo. Great to connect. Great to have you here.
Ya se perdió la señal.
No, sí lo escuchamos bien.
Sí.
Sí,
Bueno.
sí. How are you? Maybe would be great to hear a little bit of Abuelo. We're talking about regenerative agriculture and best practices in agriculture. I gave a little introduction on yourself, and I talked about your new role as the governor of the people and a lot of what you've been working on in nature. Thanks for being with us today. It's a great honor and privilege. Maybe could you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about the best practices in regenerative agriculture with and the history of the Mayans? All right.
Now it's okay.
Yes, perfect.
Well, this that is happening right now is pure energy. Well, I am learning, I am studying every day. It's about me, what I am, for what I am here with all my brothers in this planet, and the lessons and the instructions that I am receiving, that it's time to return to the roots of our life. So I can understand the roots is nutrition, the sacred nutrition that all sacred being needs to live in this planet. But what we are going to eat next time, I think that all the food that is in boxes and all that kind of recipients are going to disappear, because it's necessary to return to eat the fresh prana, the seeds, the fresh seeds, fruits that Mother Earth give us. So when we start to eat fresh food from Mother Earth, we start to get in that connection all time. And we start to understand how Mother Earth feed us, our body, our emotional body, and also our spirit, our soul. So we start to understand the cycles of sacred nature, and we can understand a little bit more every day about ourselves. So we are an amazing humanity living in this most beautiful planet, running in the sky under the Father's Sun, but at the same time waking up that we are just one, and it's necessary to respect again the rules of the cycles of the life. And the beginning is, of course, the nutrition through the air. We need to learn how to breathe, and we need to take the light of the sun, because it's a very special quantic food, and also the light of the moon for women. And the rest, we can understand how the spirit of the oceans works, giving us health. That's why the water of the ocean can save millions of lives and can keep us healthy against all kind of bacteria, germs, viruses, etc. Well, I am understanding, since I live in the jungle close to the Mother Earth, how much love we are emanating from our heart, from our brain, from our mind, from our spirit, to receive the blessings of the cosmos, of the universe, through the vibrations of Mother Earth and the sacred nature. This is that we are doing, and I am starting a project to plant some hectares of vegetables, because we need to help communities, all kind of communities, because I can see that the most of the people are like sleeping. They don't care about what is happening right now. But I am sure that after this movement of virus and other things in the world, something is going to come to clean more about the people that are sleeping. So it's necessary to wake up, to know that it's necessary to be oneness without differences. We need to love each one to the other one. It's not new. Buddha, Jesus Christ, and all the keepers of the traditions talk the same. Mother Earth has no price in money. We need to give the truth values of the human values to everyone and to anyone in this world, to the trees, to the waters, to the air, to the Mother Earth, so we can rebuild the paradise. And I think that is looks like a dream, but comes true if we work in the right sense, in the right path, to be happy, to protect our children, to protect our women, to really love with consciousness. For me, the nutrition is not just that the food that comes into our mouth. The nutrition comes also through our eyes, through our ears, through our heart, through our hands, through all the sacred envolture that we have in our sacred presence. So if we recognize ourselves like a sacred life that we are having right now, we can see the same thing in everyone, anyone, so we can respect good beginning to live freedom and with all the blessings of the universe for humanity. So I talk and I pray for all my brothers and sisters of this planet to receive the message and to be happy. And thank you for inviting me to talk about this that I am living, because I am living this since some years ago when I returned to Mother Earth to enjoy her and give the good treatment to the trees, to the animals, to the wild animals. We need to respect all that sacred beings that the Great Spirit ought to live together in peace and harmony. Well, this is that I can share with you and with all the people that are listening this sacred program, because all that we are doing to wake up consciousness is very sacred in this moment. So I am happy to be here, and one of you humility brother and service for you and for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abuelo. Amazing, beautiful, incredible wisdom for sharing. Thank you for being with us today. At the end of the conference, Abuelo, we're going to be having a another panel, which we are looking forward to having you on how we can be more inclusive to involve more farmers, more local community. We look forward to having you share your wisdom on that. So thank you so much for presenting and being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Aho. So next up, we have
Aho.
Maria Kreshman. Aho. Maria Kreshman is the CEO of After the Fall of Cider. She's After the Fall of Cider is second generation orchidist. Maria Kreshman is a fruit first approach to cider making, growing fruit on her family's land. She's transforming the old non-producing varieties in the orchard into cider apple trees. Metaphorically speaking, giving a new life built on the old growth. For 50 years, her parents gave and provided the Pittsburgh area with organic fruits and vegetables, starting out with farmers markets and then distributing through a CSA model for 25 years. On the farm, we believe her belief is in no magic formula, just encouraging life everywhere that she can, fertilizing heavily most farmers' footsteps to make it possible. She's also an artist, familiar between art and farming. By the way, one of our mentors, Ben Bingham, has said that if it's not beautiful, it's probably not right, and so that resonates. Being an orchidist and cider maker is being a sculptor, that she is only an entirely different medium. So, nurturing, creating along the continuum of fresh juice, blending, fermenting in each bottle. Thank you so much, Maria, for being with us today. Look forward to learning more about you and from you. And your amazing family business as a second generation farmer.
Thank you. Can you guys see me? I'm a little tech challenged.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so we're good. We're good. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for this opportunity today. Thank you, Abuelo. Antonio, your words are so beautiful. I really, like, that just made me want to cry. I had to turn off my video for a minute there. Yeah, much appreciated. So I want to just start by telling you all my story. And I think that my story is important because I think it's important to think about how land comes to be owned in the United States and how we as a family have, yes?
Maria, quick question. Your video camera has a filter on, so we only see blades of grass. Oh, there you are. Bingo. Okay.
Okay. All right. So
all right.
Right. So I think that it's important to tell this story to tell like how we have as a family have approached land ownership and consideration of the future of the farm. And this is like a little context in the larger picture of what's happening nationwide and globally with farmland. You know, farmers are aging and the next generation, you know, is either not interested, they're disconnected from the land, they're living in the cities. And that's a big problem for food security. So like Silvio said, I'm first and foremost, I'm an artist. I have a degree in fine art. And secondly, I'm an orchardist. I've been back on my family's land for about 6 years now. We have a diversified organic vegetable farm. We grow about 20 acres of vegetables and 5 acres of certified organic apples. I would say I'm a big idea person and I'm relentlessly diligent with my work ethic. In 1971, my parents bought this property with the intent of providing the Pittsburgh area with nutrient-dense, chemical-free produce. At the time, organic was not a thing, and farmers in the area really scoffed at my parents' desire to only grow vegetables and fruit. But they were really determined. My mother was a teacher. She provided the stability, and my father was able to take the risks with the business. They have always grown strictly organically and fertilized most heavily with the farmer's footsteps. Nature has a way of taking care of itself, and promoting life everywhere on the farm is the simplest way to let our mother thrive. Starting out, my parents did farmers markets and wholesale, and in the early 90s, they started to distribute through the CSA model. And at its peak, our farm fed over 1,200 families throughout the Pittsburgh region. If anyone isn't familiar with the CSA model, it's a subscription service where the consumer eats in season only what is grown in season, and the goods are delivered to a common neighborhood drop-off location. So it makes it really convenient. So as the world was catching on to organic foods and buying directly from the farmer, my parents' business thrived. Farmers nationwide began to use this model, and today it is like hands down the most profitable way for farmers to distribute their goods with little to no waste. There's a lot of advantages of this model. You know, the farmer gets paid up front. It enables the farmer to be paid immediately, unlike, you know, most other models where the farmer's spending all this money and then they get paid back later. It cuts out the middleman. It makes it more profitable for the farmer and more affordable for the consumer. It also teaches the public about eating seasonally, which in my opinion is the most important consideration when consuming food. I believe eating seasonally is our only long-term solution to food security for all people. We all have to learn how to eat only what grows native to where we live and make that our habit. We have to stop thinking that we can transport food from all over the globe and have that be a sustainable food model, because it's not. So after 25 years of providing vegetables and fruit for our CSA customers, you know, the time came for a generational transfer of the land. For years, my dad searched for the right person to follow in his footsteps. He literally scoured the globe and was unable to find someone. Whether it's a lack of interest for family members or otherwise, there's so many challenges facing retiring farmers. And, you know, the fact is that nobody farms who doesn't want to be farming. So there was a brief moment in time when I thought I could take over my dad's operation. You know, at that point, I had been a few years back on the farm. I realized I was really good at it, but it wasn't very good for me, and that I can't live someone else's dream. I was naturally drawn to the trees and to the ecosystem of the orchard. I much preferred standing upright than being hunched over weeding vegetables. But I needed something of my own to call, you know, or something of mine, you know, on the farm. And what I like to call my aha moment, you know, I decided to start a hard cider business, which I launched in the fall of 2019. After the fall cider was birth of a fruit first approach to cider making, I like to say that good cider starts with good fruit. I produce small batch ciders and vinegar from the fruits of my labor. I naturally did what I think is the correct approach to land stewardship. I discovered what was calling my name and I ran with it. For me personally, cider making blends the different components of me as a person into a delicious, crisp, bubbly beverage. One that, like an art installation, is meant to be experienced and shared widely. I'm just smitten with this work, and I continue to see endless possibilities for the future of my business. All this while, the vegetable operation on the farm was still thriving. We decided to give it one more year. My cousin showed up and said that, you know, he was interested in trying to run the business. Ultimately, that didn't work out, and I had already decided that it was way too much for me to take on, considering the other objectives I have for my life. So my father had no choice but to close the doors to his business. This brings us to the current moment. In December of 2020, the word spread locally, you know, that my dad was retiring. And, you know, the newspaper wanted to write a story about the farm and about my parents' legacy and the work that they've done for the last 50 years. It was a double feature in the business section. We really didn't think much of it, a nice gesture, a homage, a farewell to Farmer Don. But then a week later, the calls started, and we realized that the article had been picked up by the Associated Press and then went global. The deal shifting along the way to Farmer Wanted, which was not, you know, not the intention at all. So then the proposals started rolling in. I saw my dad getting excited at the idea of new prospects, but he had already closed up shop and sold his customer base to a young farming couple in the area. Things weren't the same. At the same time, I was thinking that maybe the future of the farm wasn't in a profit model. I knew that I didn't want to see the acreage just go to the next best white man with a plan. For a few years, I've been thinking about the idea of what a land share project could look like on the farm. I want to explore how this land can be used as an asset for communities of color in the region. I am a part of a holistic orchard network, which is a small group of organic growers And every year we meet up in Massachusetts, and it's a time that we sort of talk about the challenges of growing fruit, but it's also a time that we, you know, collectively philosophize about all things growing. And in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about reparations and land ownership at this meetup. This is where I first learned of a few organizations who are actively working on this subject. One organization, which is located in the Finger Lakes region of New York, is called Cuba International. And they are pairing people who have land with people who want land. Their mission is to relocate people to the land. Their objective lies very much in the happiness space. They're facilitating, you know, a person putting their hands in the soil for the first time and the joy in that act. You know, my research continued and I found more organizations doing this kind of work, you know, so while everyone else was putting their proposals on my father's desk, I decided I was going to do the same. I paired up with a couple of peers who are equally passionate about security issues and land access, and we began to envision what this might look like on my family's land. You know, we believe that all human beings have a right to local, nutrient-dense food, not just to survive, but to thrive. We are really thinking about redefining the framework of land ownership in an economy that favors land ownership. How can we take this fertile soil and make it accessible to communities who have historically been slighted and left out of ownership in this country? Communities who have been denied the ability to build generational wealth, and most importantly, the ability to feed themselves and their community. This is my small part in trying to dismantle white supremacy as a function of owning land. I want to take what I have the privilege of calling my own and share it, because the truth of the matter is we're all in this together, and to think otherwise is a mistake. We need to get out of this scarcity that there isn't enough to go around, because that's just not true. This is just capitalism rearing its ugly head, telling us that the minute that we get something, someone else will take it from us. Combat food security, we have to get out of this mindset and work. Only the richest of the rich are working against us, driving the global food demand all on money and not on consideration for fellow humans or their health and well-being. So at this point, we're really in the incubator phase of this. Many organizations with all of the minority growing organizations, with the larger food growing organizations, food advocate organizations, and universities. We are great. How the farm can be an asset to communities of color in the region. We are investigating what are the needs of these communities we hope to serve. We are asking what is the value for these communities to participate in this initiative. We are looking at the limitations of our farm. You know, from these many conversations over the last couple months, have heard the community members' thoughts and have decided to host a series of roundtable discussions on this idea. We know that the solutions to this won't come from us, but come from the communities that we hope to serve. We've had an amazing positive response from the public, and we're just elated at the notion that we could create this beautiful project together.
That's great.
As like a larger, as a small portion of a bigger issue, which is aging. You know, this is a global issue, but how we approach this can be a very local issue. What happens to when these farmers pass? Because the truth is that once farmland goes out of production, it never goes back. Once a farm is leveled for a housing development or for a gas well, it will never be a farm again. So how can we help mitigate risk and make land accessible for growing food to feed the population?
Thank you so much, Maria. Maria, we're running. We're like 15 minutes. We're like 10 minutes, a little bit behind here. So, we definitely want to thank you for this. Could you repeat the name of the organization that you said was helping farmers, people that were looking for land, and other people that needed to put their land to use?
Oh, sure. Yeah, in the state, there's an organization called Cuba, K-H-U-B-A International. They're located in Tompkins County, which is just Ithaca, New York. And the director there is really amazing, Kristen Nunez. She's really great, and she Yeah, like I said, they're very much on the, getting people to
That's
move
awesome.
to the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to. We're going to send an email out if it's okay with you, and we'll include your project so people can connect with you and learn some of these best practices. And the same thing that you're doing of mapping out the ecosystem and the needs of the ecosystem is what we want to do with next steps. So we'll love to connect with you and get some of those insights, like the NGO and everything else that you're doing, so we can spell it out and send it to everybody that's registered for the conference, Maria. And we want to also give a special shout out and thanks to Michelle for suggesting you as a wonderful female farmer and this amazing family story that you have, highlighting all the difficulties and pains and opportunities as well to engage with the community and do better.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Rob, I know that we're going to be covering a little bit on food security. Rob, if you'd like to talk a little bit about, I think very perfectly with Maria's story and what she's been doing in engaging the local community, you've been doing as well with Mandala Springs, and the work that you've been doing, also engaging your local community in food security to help with the local farms. Are you able to talk a little bit about that? Maybe
I am, and I also recognize that we're running a little behind, so I'll try to be brief for the sake of everyone. Can you hear me? Are we good to go?
Yes.
Okay. So just briefly, so I am the founder creator of Mandala Springs and Mandala Naturals.
You want me up next? That's still on? Okay, I'm here. I'm waiting.
I think we need to mute some folks.
Yeah, sorry about that, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm the founder and creator of Mandala Springs, which is 67 acres and growing, human empowerment and ecological retreat center. It is a certified organic forest farm where we are specializing in cultivating and helping local communities of wild perennial organisms that live under the canopy. And we're actually going to places where they're where they're doing development, and we're finding these species, and we're actually taking them and protecting the genetic diversity of these species by creating a living wild gene bank here. And so Mandala Chocolate actually utilizes some of the wild-crafted mushrooms and plants that we've gotten certified organic that we grow right here on site. And simultaneously, I was able to help working with the USDA, the Forest Service, and CCOF as an organic certifier to pioneer a program where people are able to do the same on public lands for the first time in history. So in the United States now, you can get wild organisms certified organic. You can help to create and perpetuate these populations of important organisms. And you can basically wildcraft certified organic for your value-added products or whatever else you're doing. And it adds a layer of protection to the forest. So that is, in brief, what I'm doing here at Mandala Springs with Mandala Chocolate. And the other side of that is that, we're making chocolate. We're using superfoods from all over the world. So the goal is that we are a force of benefit for local communities, and we're a source of benefit for the farmers who are growing these crops. So, the idea here is it's food security and nutrition. So the nutrition part, and this was already spoken to, and I want to emphasize, there are no better foods with higher nutrition and better for you than the local wild foods that are available in your backyard. And when you are combining that with the healthy soils, which actually creates the immune system for the plants, and these foods that grow under the intact forest, actually the older and more primal the forest ecosystem gets, the healthier and better these foods become. What you're seeing is a dynamic opportunity to protect existing ecosystems and to simultaneously create healthier, higher quality food systems for people around the globe. Right now, there's over 850 million people who do not have enough food to eat today, right now, every single day. That's 1 out of 9 people right now do not have food. I would love to offer a challenge actually to you, to this community. If you've never done any fasting before, I recommend just 24 hours, no food. Do a 24-hour fast with, in your heart, the idea of these 850 million people right now that don't have food. I encourage you to have a visceral experience of what it feels like. And even then, at that 24 hours, you're not going to have a clue, because these are people who their entire lives, they stay malnutrition, they stay malnourished. And of that, 3.1 million children every year under the age of 5 die from malnutrition unnecessarily. And it has to do with what we were talking about before. It's a lack of education, a lack of knowledge, people cutting down their primal forest ecosystems, not understanding the use and the benefit of the local foods, creating integrative systems between their communities and villages and the culture and that ecosystem to continue to restore, remediate, and protect. So with, there's basically some steps that need to be taken in order to create the right kind of food sovereignty that we really need for the future. And first and foremost, we have to conserve the existing intact ecosystems. That's got to become priority number one, because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling and they don't know any better, and they are cutting down their forests, not just to get lumber, but more often than not, they leave the lumber to rot. They just want to put cattle in place. So they want to have more space for their, the monoculture, the crops that they're growing. And they're losing the most valuable ecosystem that they have, like the most valuable economic resource that they have in the process. So really doing a favor to help conserve. So I've done a lot of this in Guatemala with the Cloud Forest Conservation Initiative. I've created a campaign, very grassroots, originally asking for $1,500 to help protect a cloud forest that I love and the community surrounding it, that eventually raised $10 million and saved this cloud forest forever. So first and foremost, protect that. Here locally, I have Forest Keeper as my nonprofit, and we're working to get our public lands designated as wilderness. Because right now, public lands in the United States, they have this archaic forestry model where they're doing these massive cuts and they're destroying the intact forest, and it's actually producing a significantly lower economic benefit for everyone, except for the loggers who are getting this little burst of an economy at the expense of the long-term economic benefit that grows year after year when you have the intact forest. So working on that locally and working on that in Central America, this is something we need to be working on globally at this point. So once we have the intact ecosystems conserved, then we need to educate the locals at intact ecosystem. We need to help educate them on how to start utilizing the wild organisms more effectively. And start integrating them into what they are doing, the crops that they're growing, because these wild organisms are also, there's so many benefits. They're not just higher nutrition, but they're actually usually naturally disease resistant, which means we don't have to spray them with chemicals and compounds in order to get them to expand in their population sizes. And they are part of that supportive, healthy native ecosystem. And so there's just untold benefits to when you start integrating the endemic foods of your area into the agricultural system. And then once you've conserved the wild intact systems, you need to help start to restore and regenerate the denigrated land by planting food forests, native species, a lot of the nitrogen fixing trees in the Fabaceae family, like the bean family, things like that, in order to start building the food forest and also creating a buffer around the intact ecosystems that you have just protected, as well as another economic and food opportunity for the local community. Yep. And then basically from there, then you're working with the locals to help make sure that their gray water and waste systems are sustainable, to help them to organize themselves into community agricultural cooperatives so that each family has its own dynamic farm with all of the different crops that that constitute that healthy, holistic ecosystem. And they can then work together to collaboratively harvest, grow, and then ship whatever products they are to people like me so I can use them in my chocolate. So one of the things that I've been doing in Guatemala, for example, is helping to establish these community cooperatives, specifically certified organic community cooperatives, so that they can grow things in their own individual family farms, have all certified organic under a single umbrella, take it all to one processing plant and get it to me at a price that is going to continue to create more thrival in their communities and give us by far the highest quality product that we could get to put into our chocolate.
Amazing.
And then that's basically, I mean, I was going to speak a lot more on each of these things, but for the sake of brevity, because we're out of time, that's a little bullet of information for you. So I hope that helps. Please feel free to reach out to me. And I know Silvio's going to be sending out an email if you want more information on these things that I'm speaking about.
And for those of you that want to support Rob and Rob's amazing work, buy his chocolate, which is amazing. Rob has a special chocolate, very strong chocolate, full of nutrients, called the Cloud Forest, and you can learn more about that and taste that and help support the work in Guatemala. So amazing. Thank you so much for that, Rob. Harvey, you're next. A little bit about Harvey Kaye. Harvey's the chairman and CEO of Zero Gravity Solutions, ladies and gentlemen. Zero Gravity Solutions is one of these businesses. They're 7th, 8th year in business now. Solution that was built on space. It went to the International Space Station, not with Harvey, but they did go to the International Space Station. Harvey told them that somebody needed to keep the knowledge base here on Earth and hold down fort, which he's been doing over the last 40 years with experience in providing financing, strategic planning, and administrative leadership to both small and large companies, public and private. Entrepreneur, investment banker, chairman, and CEO. He's a former chairman and CEO of Latitude Solutions, a publicly traded holding company for several subsidiaries, and providing products, processes, and services for contaminated water applications. And now the chairman of publicly traded Zero Gravity Solutions, which you guys should follow very closely because they're going to be doing a lot of important announcements this year. So it's incredibly, it's a great honor and privilege to have you here, Harvey. Really as an exemplar and as an example of what the future of food can look like. We've been talking a lot about this transition of best practices historically that have been lost, and people like Rob are working to regain with communities inclusively. And now we have you, Harvey, which is working really at the future level of what the future could be and also making it more sustainable. On to you, please. Tell us a little bit about
okay.
what you're seeing.
Can you hear me and can you see me?
Yes, you look beautiful.
Oh, good. Okay, then I'll move right on. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that the fact that my picture and what I am wearing today look the same is because I haven't worn a suit in a year because of COVID. And so I decided to follow the dress code and become dressed. Having said that, I have a few comments to make that I believe can tie all of this together in a cogent way. To start with, I was asked the question, what is the future of agriculture? And I sort of looked at it based upon the experiences that we have had, that there's 3 or 4 items that lead the way to the future of agriculture. The first is understanding and applying the new technologies that are coming out of science, research, and companies like ours that devise a product called BAMFX that was gone to the space station for 2 times, that has collaborated with NASA in order to use this technology to provide deeply nutritious food for astronauts literally going to Mars. We then hypothesized what would happen if we apply this technology to agriculture on Earth. And the results were somewhat astounding. 25 to 50% increases in yield, resistance to abiotic and biotic stress, bugs and weather, and producing very powerful, very healthy plants. So we followed the advice of one of our senior advisors, who's the former president of DuPont Crop Protection Services, who basically said, sell the technology that you have called BAM-FX, a highly concentrated, powerful liquid formulation, be able to develop a distribution network to be able to aid agriculture by virtue of technology, knowledge, education. The question is asked, where is the next generation of farmers coming from? To use a word by Dr. Omar, who will be speaking shortly, okay, agriculture needs to be made exciting again. It needs to have the appeal for the next generation that Silicon Valley had, because it's using technology, it's using knowledge, it's using high-tech information in order to become a highly productive, highly successful economic farmer. When you think about it, the generation of farmers today around the world are in their 60s, 70s, sometimes 80s. Their kids are not staying on the farm. So our job is to be able to produce the ability to increase yields, to reduce costs, and to create viable businesses for the families of the world's farmers. And last but not least, to provide hope. Because at the end of the day, if the only thing you have when prices are low and the economy is not doing well, and you can't get out to harvest your crop, you need to have hope that there's a future, that there's a better way. And I think that what ties together what everybody on this call has been saying is we offer solutions, particularly to the disadvantaged farmers, the younger farmers, and the new farmers. To that end, okay, our technology, BAM-FX, is actually ties together what everyone else has said. It starts with not only going back to the ancient Aztecs and the Maya, but go back to nature. How did nature prepare plants to survive in a hostile world? Answer, an evolutionary innate immune system, which has learned to deal with all of these problems that we're dealing with today. And so 50 years ago, when they invented the ability to take nitrogen out of the air and make it into a fertilizer, agriculture in general has been going down the path of more additives, more fertilizer, more fungicide, more pesticide, more virucide. And you know what happens? The plants lose their effectiveness with these chemicals. We've destroyed the biome in the soil. We've destroyed the natural robustness of the plant itself. And we've created a sick agricultural environment. The mechanism of action of BAM, we have now discovered, is to effectuate something called priming. And what priming is a known technology for the last 50 years that has not been widely adopted because they went the chemical route firstly, and secondly, there has not been an ability to generate what is called priming effects on a variety of plant diseases, including fungal, bacterial, and viral diseases in a natural way, as has been said repeatedly, in a way that works with nature, not against nature, that uses natural processes of the plant's physiology to make it defend against disease and weather and all of that. So we have spent about $26 billion and the last 5 or 6 years to do the hard work, to use the third-party independent validation and scientists of land-grant universities throughout the United States, of becoming compliant in countries throughout Central and South America and also in Asia, where we have set up distributors and people that are now moving this product, MFX, into the marketplace. But the connection to what everybody has been saying, including Brazil, where we have been active, including the notion of food as medicine, we are involved right now working with a number of universities that are planting areas in a large program to determine how BAM utilizes the immune system of the plant to increase yield and defense against disease, but also to utilize BAM's ability to increase the nutrient value of the plant itself by making it more efficient, by having it have the ability to absorb the micronutrients and all of those other aspects of it, and create deeply nutritious food. As the last speaker was saying, okay, there is something called hidden hunger. Hidden hunger means even if you have food to eat, that if it's not nutritious, then that's the reason for increased disease around the world, because there is something called hidden hunger. So we now have done it the hard way. We've spent the years, we've gathered the independent data, we have employed our product, and now we are moving this technology into the area of the mitigation of disease. There are fungal, bacterial, and viral diseases that are likely to cause a pandemic in, as someone said, monoclonal crops. All the crops in the world, whether it's bananas, it's coffee, it's olives, it's citrus, all are monoclonal. So if a disease affects one, it affects all. To that end, we have done exhaustive studies in citrus, where 70% of the citrus crop in Florida was destroyed. Same thing in olives, same thing in other crops. And we have demonstrated conclusively that BAM has a curative effect on these diseases. And so we are in two swim lanes, one of which is, the generation of revenue through the sale of our products, including a product called Gardener's Choice, which is a ready-to-use version of BAM that's now available in 2,500 Rite Aid stores around the country, soon to be in other drugstores and the like. So to summarize, Silvio, because I don't know what the time slots are anymore, here is the summary. We are working with an organization called the National Black Farmers Association. We started that relationship 2 years ago. Dr. John Boyd is the founder of that organization, along with his wife, Cara Boyd, who is a speaker or a panelist coming up in this presentation. She is also the president of the Association of American Indian Farmers. And we are working with both the Black farmers and the American Indian farmers and other disadvantaged farmers in order to bring knowledge, technology, education. We're working with the historic Black colleges and universities. We're working to educate the next generation of farmers, along with 4-H, along with the Boys and Girls Clubs. So we are a company that has an extraordinary technology of the future being applied to agriculture today. We're being socially responsible because we believe that you can live with the NFL, you can live without basketball, you cannot live without food. So we want to be the natural way to increase yield, to fight against plant diseases, and to bring good farming practices to the world of agriculture to help those smaller and middle-sized farmers build robust, successful businesses and companies and feed the world good quality, nutritious food. And I'll pause there, Silvio. I don't know how much that was, but there you go.
Thank you so much. Right on time, Harvey. Thank you. That's amazing. And really appreciate you sharing that. And obviously, it's really important for people to understand the backdrop of what you're doing. Doing so much amazing work, including the work with the Association of Black Farmers. also with so much work in the educational front, working with you groups like University of Florida to validate the work that you're doing. And you can immediately save the entire state of Florida with the problem that we have with citrus screening here with BAM-FX. So we're really excited about it. And in fact, we're going to transition now on the panel that you're on, which is on the future of food security, the future of agriculture and technology, with people that you've collaborated with in the past, including Pedram Nimziri. Pedram is a cyberneticist and teacher of Kung Fu, serves as the director of intelligent software, machine perception cognitive robotics lab at FAU. Believes that the single most important subject is ethical AI. We're going to try to keep the conversation a bit short, just we're running on. Pedram is somebody that I've been collaborating with for several years on quantum secure cryptography, blockchain systems, drone technology, and robotics, IoT, cloud computing. A real amazing collaborator. And we also have Dr. Conway Gibson, another one of our partners and portfolio companies that I've had the pleasure of working alongside several years. Dr. Gibson is a scientist, ecopreneur, and investor, has an amazing personal history. She's here in South Florida as well. I suggest anybody that can connect with her to connect with her and her ecotech visions. She founded and scaled a number of urban schools through data and technology post-Katrina in New Orleans, where she's from, in the business world, and has scaled more than 20 successful companies through ecotech visions. For example, she guides entrepreneurs to grow smart manufacturing for smart cities through an on-demand marketplace that's powered by AI, IoT, and blockchain technology. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly bright, incredibly driven. Bachelor's from Scripps College, master's from Claremont Graduate University, and a master's in leadership from Harvard, and an MBA from MIT, and a PhD from Claremont. I mean, talking about being accomplished. She's lived, studied, taught, and worked internationally at notable universities like Logan in Accra in Ghana and Oxford University in England. So learn a little bit more about ecotech. And Ashi, which has been an incredibly instrumental partner for us to put this event together. Ashi, can't thank you enough. Ashi Mittal is the CEO, founder of Pivotal Solutions Consulting. She focuses on problem solving, disrupting sustainable solutions, organizational health, executive coaching, global connectivity, participates in speaking engagements, has been incredibly instrumental for this speaking engagement, focus on executive leadership and global sustainability globally. She's also an international best-selling author with publications covering a sundry of interdisciplinary topics. Interdisciplinary, I think, is a key word to emphasize here, because a lot of, I think, what we're showing here in the community is meant to be this. Pedram is also one of these perfect examples, and Conway is of interdisciplinary topics and sciences being brought together, geopolitical patterns, engineering and economics, world sustainability, human productivity, historical perspective, etc. So she has an MBA and a master's degree in history and Egyptology, and is also a martial artist. Just like myself, I have a 4th degree black belt. Pedram's also a martial arts teacher like myself, and Ashi. So it's nice to, so if we all go out, walk into a bar, that we're the geeks you probably don't want to mess with, but we're good people that care about the world. So anyway, I want to pose this question to you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the work that you do in your life to get this stuff going. I'm trying to, as we're moving on the future of agriculture, Dr. Conway, I don't know if you're with us. I'm going to start highlighting you guys and pinning you. I'm learning a little bit more about this on the spotlight to pin you guys and share you. Maybe you can give a quick intro. You there and answer the following question. We have this prompt, which is, as we see the future, how do you see the future of agriculture, and what areas do you think we should be focused on? How do you think ag tech particularly is shaping that future? We'll start with ladies first. Dr. Gibson, if you're on, then we'll go and pass it on to Ashi and then Harvey and Pedram.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Silvio. This has been an amazing conversation that I've been able to listen in on for the afternoon, and hope to continue to hear from really insightful speakers. That's a very interesting question, the future of agriculture or ag tech. I think that the future of agriculture is really about innovating what nature has already brought us, so innovating around the Calvin cycle. If you look at aeroponics, aquaponics, hydroponics, aquaculture, they're all really about how do you create efficiency through a mechanized model of reproducing the Calvin cycle or creating efficiency for the photosynthesis process. And I think as technology data is being used, there's going to be a lot of significant opportunities there. I think just from listening to some of the previous speakers and the larger context and conversations that we've had before, space tech is going to play a critical role. Terraforming products are going to play a critical role in people really thinking about how to advance and do things in a more efficient way. I also think, Florida is one of the fastest growing aquaculture ecosystems in the world. And so there's significant opportunities there to start to innovate around that work. But as we think about how to use dirt, soil in a more efficient way, how to measure and collect data from the process, and facilitate carbon capturing, there are some significant opportunities. I also think agriculture is a gateway to addressing some of the packaging and packaging issues that exist in the world. And so there's now kelp resins, avocado, corn, sugar, et cetera, that are really going to revolutionize and decrease our dependence on traditional plastic resins that are, wreaking havoc on the planet right now. So I'll stop there because there's a lot of expertise on this panel, but thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Dr. Gibson. It's always a great honor and privilege to collaborate with you. Ashi?
Well, I am going to echo a couple sentences and sentiments of the good doctor who spoke previously. I think the future of agriculture could be very bright if we zero in on solving the challenges that affect that future, right? So we're talking about concentrating on, of course, the integration of technology, but also incentivizing the next generation of farmers and individuals to help deal with the technological labor and the technological use of the machinery that's in the hands of our farmers. But quite frankly, we need to focus on solutions that are causes of climate change, right? Technology obviously aids in this. We're talking about satellite imagery, we're talking about drone technology and tech and yield monitoring. When we're talking about the concept of agriculture technology, we're talking about gaining more control over how plants and animals are produced, processed, stored, distributed. We're talking about improving the safety of our food. We're able to closely monitor crops and herds for disease and illness that might have gone unnoticed. The most dangerous words that a farmer could hear involves nitrogen oxide, right? And monitoring those chemicals affecting the crops. So when we're talking about, reducing our environmental and ecological impact while keeping our food system safer and more transparent, ag tech is the way in shaping the future of food, right? It's not just about how it's grown, it's about what it is, how it's processed, how it's packaged, even how we cook and consume, right? So when we're thinking about the shaping of that future, ag tech is integral. But when we're thinking about the technological solutions, we've got to be thinking about, once again, those major problems of technology, integration of technology, and what are we doing in the face of climate change.
Could I just say one thing about that? I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I want to address this to Pedram. Pedram and we spoke some time ago, and Pedram and his team are basically developing new artificial intelligence tools, methodologies to monitor all the things that you're talking about. The way we are collaborating and can collaborate with them is, on the one hand, it's the tools to improve the practices and the science and all the rest. Our side of it is working the crop itself so that you're improving the growing processes. You're lessening the amount of inputs. You are utilizing the natural processes of the plant itself, similar to immunotherapy or messenger RNA, to tell the plant how to use its natural defenses to fight off these things. And I think that part of the future is blending together the tools and the technologies to improve the farming itself And maybe you want to turn that back to Pedram, you know, and I'll be quiet.
I couldn't have asked for a better intro. Thank you, Harvey.
Right.
I was going to start talking about AI, but hearing you say that, it started to remind me about what Sylvia was talking about as the coincidence that we're all martial artists, and something that both martial arts and quantum science and mechanics really respect is the duality of particles and yin and yang. And as that relates to happiness, I was listening to a good psychologist the other day, and he was speaking, or actually a neuroendocrinologist, who was speaking on the difference between pleasure and happiness. And specifically, it's one is dopamine related, one is serotonin related, right? And the serotonin is able to last. The dopamine one, the more it more is processed, the worse off the situation in the brain is, right? Things break down and it starts to shut off. And it's kind of like, in that concept of to be able to feel pleasure, you actually have to release some buildup of energy that was created. And this cycle just repeats over and over and over again. So, aquaponics is something that me and Dr. William Hahn have really focused all of our AI attention on. And, that concept of how do you stack the deck? How do you create turnkey AI solutions that allow people in all endeavors to apply the newest AI to what they're trying to do? And a lot of this stuff is almost like magic, right? We've gotten drones down to the tiniest sizes. And these have the same kind of technology that NASA used to get on the moon. And it now fits in a tiny little spot. We have little computer, basically just little chips, magic almost, that one of the things that allow the systems of AI to be applied to ag tech is start treating it like we say AR/VR. We have to say fintech/ag tech. Because if people can't eat, there's no financial system. And the bigger that problem spreads, the bigger the problem, is more dopamine related, right? It's just processed sugars and toxic chemicals and toxic pesticide practices. And I don't want to see, the best technology that we've been able to get to at a pinnacle in our society to then backslide, where we're saying, let's use AI to apply pesticides. No, you don't need that. If you have the ability to take computer vision and teach computers and robots to be able to, lightly pick up a ladybug, then you don't need to spray pesticides all over plants. You can actually have, educational programs that help put these things together and help do things like robotic pesticide, where no chemicals are actually being sprayed, if it's all mechanical processes. And you're respecting things like, what are the biological markers that allow a plant to grow? Most people don't realize that plants are, for lack of a better word, almost quadriplegics when they're in the growing stage, because they need bacteria to convert so that they can eat. They need their roots to be wet and then dry, and then wet and then dry, so that they can breathe. And if you don't respect, hundreds of these little parameters that nature does without trying, then you're always going to get in your own way. And we want to be able to, take the ancient knowledge and apply Eastern sciences and Western sciences in a holistic manner that respects, the knowledge and the purpose of it, right? Like, we shouldn't say this is what we're from, Florida. We should say we're from Earth, or at least we're from the United States. We don't kind of allow ourselves to become interdisciplinary, to let the sciences mix and the profit doesn't come unless you get the planet plus the people in the equation, I think.
I think that
no, absolutely.
Ashri and Dr. Gibson, would you guys like to comment, please?
I mean, yeah, Padram is my seafood, so I like everything he says, like ditto, 100%.
I just gotta say one thing, that everybody on the call is a martial artist. My distinction is I'm a saxophone player. So I guess I'm a lover, not a fighter. So there you go.
Actually, most of my top students are musicians. It's something in the brain that allows you to do multiple
Except
things.
for me, I'm visual.
There you go. And there you go. So, Dr. Gibson, would you like to comment, or Ashri?
No, I will say that Padram brought up some fascinating points. I will say that I agree with almost everything that he said. We'll take it outside of back on the streets, dare I say, right? We can show off one another's skill, see how that works out. But I mean, once again, I just want to focus on the concept of viability versus commodity, right? Of what this truly is, and bringing it back to that point of farming being about viability and the focus on that of equality.
And you know that viability is three or four different things.
Of course.
One is they got to survive. And if their children, if they don't have a business to bequeath to their progeny, then where's the future of farming? Yeah. So that's why our Vice President, Victor Robinson, is working very closely with the government and the new administration and the National Black Farmers and Dr. John Boyd, who understand that you got to give this area of agriculture support. It needs, technology. It needs knowledge. It needs government support, because at the end of the day, if you can't support, the small farmers, you're going to wind up with 2 or 3 conglomerates, and that's it. So I think all of us are thinking, how do we help the family farm as well as farming in general? You guys have any thoughts on that, perhaps?
Yeah, I sort of wanted to speak to the distinction that has been sort of drawn and people speaking to, as the panel is titled, like, the future of agriculture, and the distinction between farming and agriculture, the notion of the historical nature of commercial farming and creating an optimized framework for that, the in the ground kind of work, versus the growth of mechanized farming and urban farming that's occurring as a result of the infusion of technology in the process, really creating a democratization in terms of access to growth for everybody to have access to quality, healthy products. And so I think, there's space in that, that technology will enhance that did not exist before, because there was a level of skill set that was required that, fortunately or unfortunately, right, it depends on where you fall on this, that technology will mitigate and minimize for people. If there's mass adoption, right? So the issue is about mass adoption, access, et cetera. But as we're growing this and thinking about the distinction of localization, and my work being a lot in supply chain, and I think, COVID has really opened people's eyes, because people now, because they couldn't get their toilet paper, sort of understand the significance of things being local. I think there is more of a consciousness and concept of what it means to not really be reliant on these large, dominant structural farming historical structures to an urbanization of local resources and local availability.
It all goes back to what the other gentleman was saying, which is local farming, local crops, versus the mechanization and the globalization of it all commercially. I think we're destroying
Right.
the infrastructure, the future, the diversity of the planet. You know, so I don't know. That's what I've been thinking. Anyway.
Yeah, and this brings us to our next panel on hyperlocal, talking about localization. It is something that Pedron and Conway and us, Harvey, we're all working on here, and people that are in South Florida. But let's talk about Mayor Omar O'Neill.
Yes.
Right, and dovetail into that conversation to see, and introduce him here, because I think that he can really help frame that, I think, localization
I couldn't agree more.
For us.
Open it up.
So we're moving on to the power panel on food security and nutrition in terms of like our outlook for 2020 and 2022. There are a couple of panelists that are staying on. So I'm gonna introduce Omar O'Neill. We've not had the chance to introduce yet. He had served as mayor of the historic city of Tuskegee, Alabama, from November 2008 to 2012, and the Macon County Commissioner from 1996 to 2000. With in-depth conversations of hundreds of top-level professionals, giving O'Neill a great understanding of thinking, behaviors, and skills needed for this kind of effective leadership. He served as a policeman as well as a juvenile court counselor, has penned a proposal to establish Youth Aid Division of Tuskegee Police, just incredibly empowered individual with a personification arrayed within a great ability to mobilize and empower and motivate people from all walks of life. And maybe that's why he's done such a great job as a radio host. And so Mayor Omar, you've completed thousands of training classes with people, empowering business leaders of all kinds. You're hearing some of the conversation in the way that this is rolling out. It'd be great to hear your point of view here on the future of food, and how we might be able to have this conversation on examples of how we can take all these concepts and make them really our own and make them hyper local. And the other person, I don't know if Phil, you're on, that we'd like to add into our conversation today. I don't see Phil on. So we'll go over, and then we'll have Dr. Ashi and Maria and Dr. Enoch, which have already been presented to carry on this conversation. But I think it really, maybe we can integrate with the experience you've had here. Some people are approaching mayors all the time with opportunities to come and bring new ideas. Given your perspective and given what you know, what wisdom can you share with us here on how we can localize the conversation?
Well, Servio, this has been an absolutely wonderful experience. This forum has really enlightened me. As you know, being a mayor, the primary focus is to have a healthy community. And you cannot have a healthy community unless you have healthy people. And you can't have healthy people if you don't have a healthy nutrition for those people. So you have to have food, healthy food. And one thing that COVID has taught us, not just in our local communities, but around the world, is that we're interrelated, interdependent. And I was always told, as we look at a divided world, that the thing that brings people together has to be some what you call a common denominator. Anytime something is divided, to add it or to combine it, you have to have a common denominator, and that common denominator is food. And so we have to reimagine what food looks like in terms of us providing food through agriculture. And we have to be more intentional about advocating to our children the need to be in the agricultural industry, to be farmers. One of the things that I noticed as the mayor is when the people die out, many times their children do not take up the farm and continue the farming. And so we're losing many of our young people because of their interest does not lie in the farming industry. And so therefore we have to do more to make farming sexy. I was just looking at Janice Watson, Shara Howard, and I have another person, C.K. Johnson, all on now. These people are trying to really recruit from a different perspective through their example of being in agriculture. These are beautiful people, who are tilling the soil and coming up with new innovative ways to maintain the soil and all of those different things. And what I find, and they are all from Tuskegee University now, so I have to put a plug out, George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington and all of these people are from HBCUs, but the problem is they have these wonderful ideas, but they don't have access to capital. And so what we have to do, we have to be very intentional about not only sharing information with each other, but also making sure that as they come up with innovations, that they have money to advance those innovations, put those innovations to work in local communities so that we can build farms locally, because the closer your food is to your table, the healthier you are.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's exactly the narrative here of some of the conversation. Ashi, you want to chime in on that?
Absolutely. Well, Mayor, you, as always, have so many terrific things to say, to unpack, and of course, I need to respond to some of them. Well, first and foremost, when we're talking about the outlook of this industry in 2021, 2022, I just have to say, first and foremost, this is going to be the year that women in agriculture break out. Okay, we've talked about plant-based eating being on the rise, required for transparency throughout the chain, as well as mandates coming out in regards to toxic chemicals, things that we're not used to digesting. But I have to echo the sentiment here that the most crucial need is the lack of accessibility to land and capital. I mean, we speak to the supply chain a great deal, accessibility to world markets, passing down knowledge that's been lost between generations, and of course, various cultures around the world. But those are somewhat secondary if you think about it. Where are farmers going to be in regards to these issues if they don't have land or the financial ability to keep it, right? We're all aware of the American Rescue Plan that is recently has been passed, right? We're talking about provisions being provided for upwards of $10 billion to strengthen the agricultural game and in providing relief. What we need to be doing is helping our farmers obtain those very reachable funds, all right? We have to remember that education is the silver bullet here in regards to accepting and realizing what our farmers need and how investors are able to aid in that dichotomy. Perhaps we should have investors leverage their capital, purchase and redistribute land to farmers, and negotiate in a much more principled manner. And I'm also going to be bringing it right back around to the term accessibility, and also focusing on supporting viability versus the commodity. But one more added in here, it goes back to eliminating the inequality in land ownership, period, BIPOC and otherwise. I'm going to bring attention to that point, and that's where I will leave you today.
Let me just respond to all of those absolutely wonderful comments. The point of the matter is land is the foundation for sustainability for anything that we do, life itself. We'll make a lot of things. We'll make more cars, we'll make more planes, we'll make more other, much more things, but we cannot make any more land. And so what we have to do is we need to use the is to feed people properly, right? And so once we began to do that, then all of the other ills of our community, our health, when you look at let's just focus on the African-American community for a second. The African-American community tends to fall on the top of every bad list and on the bottom of every good list as it relates to health and health disparities. And so if that's the case, then we know that there's a direct correlation between our health and our diet. And so we have to do a better job as the African-American community through our HBCUs, that's historically Black colleges and universities, to put people into our communities that can provide for us healthy food. That's where the recruitment of our young people come into play. Let's look at the South, the Black Belt in Alabama. What we have an abundance of is land. And much of this land is not being utilized to create healthy food. If we can get people like I said, Jonice and Shara and CK and others, money, not to buy the land for you in kind of sharecrop, but to assist them in getting land that they can own and build posterity for their children and their children's children. Once we can do that and also have them be supported throughout the process, because access to capital is still a problem. Once we can do that, then we can create a sustained economy and a sustained community, because we have healthy people with a healthy economy.
You know, I don't know if anybody can hear me perhaps, but I see that Kara Boyd is participating. I think it would be very worthwhile to get a few words from her. We have been working with Kara and the National Black Farmers, as well as the American Indian Farmers, for the better part of 2 years. We have learned what these problems really mean, because we got the whole history. And we cannot allow what we did with that and the farmers and its effect upon generational wealth and the dissolution of the small farmer to move into the next 10 years. And if, I don't know, Silvio, if you could figure out how to get Kara on, you will find that she has some very good things to say. I don't know if you can.
She's on the next panel. No, absolutely. She's on the next panel. So it's actually a perfect transition
of the agenda. I apologize.
No, yes, of course. Which brings us to our next panel.
Perfect. There you go.
And really, I think, I want to drive home Mayor O'Neill's point that one of the biggest challenges and opportunities is really the deploying of resources and the gathering, and that's one of the things that Logos Capital does aim to do. So we need to rally around this and circle on this further. Our next panel is on diverse smallholder farming. We have Mayor O'Neill. We have Abuelo Antonio, which isn't here right now. Let me make sure to ping him so we can dial in. Dr. Vanessa Enoch and Kara Boyd. Kara Boyd, Harvey was able to introduce ahead of me. She's Kara Boyd Lumbee is president of the Association of American Indian Farmers. It is, I think, which is called the AAIF, provides advocacy, outreach, and technical assistance to American Indian farmers and ranchers. Kara is an Air Force veteran who serves as an advisor for the Native Organizers Alliance and a co-founder of Indigenous Cultural Ways. She was appointed to the Legislative Committee to address the Indian Children Welfare Laws, big issue, and concerns American Indian families. Currently serves on the board of directors for Kiss the Ground. Congratulations for that recent nomination, Kara. And is married to civil rights activist John Boyd Jr., president of the National Black Farmers Association. The Boyds have spent over 30 years advocating for civil rights and social justice while trying to retain and increase land ownership for minority farmers. And thank you for that. Kara serves as the NBFA event and program coordinator. NBFA has been successful in entering into an MOU with the U.S. Forest Service. By the way, if you guys did not know about that, check it out. U.S. Forest Service, United States Department of Agriculture and Environmental Protection Agency. And while the Boyds were featured in docuseries The American Farm on the History Channel, Kara was featured in a docuseries Unexpected Beauty, Women We Love by Estee Lauder on her farm. In 2019, the Boyds purchased a 1,000-acre farm with 5 documented Indian village sites on the Roanoke River in Virginia, an ancestral homeland for the Saponi tribe. Kara created Saponi Ventures LLC and secured a Veterans Affairs hemp grower's license. Her first hemp crop was grown using regenerative agriculture practices and BAM effects. takes the shout plug for Harvey there on the BAM effects. So Pony Ventures will seek to expand and market procured hemp flour and the hemp products for small scale farmers. So as you know, the panelists, Kara, you're up. I guess the question for this panel here is, what model should we adopt and implement to both scale up and build a farm brand in community markets to support local smallholder farmers? What should we be aware of in terms of scaling up and supporting these smallholder farmers?
Well, thank you for having me. And this is what I do day in and day out. I eat, drink, and sleep farming. And we have a hashtag. In fact, I have two that I use. One is Let's Get Growing, and the other one is We Grow Farmers. And in the chat, I shared the website, wegrowfarmers.com. And one of the things that I have learned that's very discouraging and oftentimes a stumbling block for small scale growers and producers is self-identification. And for them to really understand that there is no minimum land size requirement and no minimum annual sales to have a farm and to be registered with USDA as a farm operation. And I think that if we're able to address that and really educate community members, especially landholders, there are a lot of people who are growing and producing small scale. And what they'll say is, I grow a garden. Well, guess what? That's a farming operation. And the difference between the garden and the farm is that the garden is a hobby, a farm is a business. A gardener is a hobby, and a farmer is an occupation. And so that's where going into USDA, requesting a farm serial number, getting on grid, and actually beginning to apply and participate in USDA programs, I believe will really change the dynamic. Where we see that 99% of agriculture producers are European or not people of color, the reason we see that number is because the 2017 Ag Census or any of the agriculture census are voluntary. And a lot of our growers and producers just aren't on grid. They aren't enrolled in these programs. They're not receiving subsidies. They're not participating in taxpayer-funded programs.
A lot of good points. And how do we get the word out? I mean, but you've been working with small scale farmers. What can be done? How can we help?
Well, what I can say is, encouraging everyone to go take a copy of your deed, whether you own your property or you're just leasing it. Go to your county FSA office, request that farm serial number. Think of it like a 911 address on your property or a VIN number on your vehicle. And if DMV doesn't know who owns the car, then you can't get a tag. So in order to get compensation and services from USDA for your farm, they need to know who you are, where you are, and what you're doing. And so that would be my recommendation. I tell people there was telegram, telephone, telecara. If they don't want someone to know, they better not tell Kara. So we're going to work very hard to continue to get the word out and to encourage individuals to go in. Because of the decades of discrimination at USDA, a lot of people are leery. They don't trust USDA. And so we have the MOU, which is helping us to foster and rebuild that relationship. Do I think everything is perfect at USDA? No, but they do have excellent programs, and we need to be more represented and we need to participate at a higher level, because we all know that he who controls the food controls the man. So we want to make sure that everyone, who needs additional assistance can reach out to the National Black Farmers Association. I shared the website, blackfarmers.org, or the Native American Farmers.org. And we also have a women's organization, womenfarmers.net. And so we're here to help. All of our services are free of charge. We don't charge. And we just want to make sure that we are providing advocacy, outreach, and direct technical assistance to farmers, growers, and producers of all.
I think we lost her.
I'm back. I put
good.
my not disturbed, so sorry.
I got you. Our experience with Kara is she really does what she says, and she says what she does. And we are beyond delighted to be associated with the group and move forward with everyone. So Silvio, back to you. You're, I think, quarterbacking all this now.
Well, let me jump in for a second. Again, I'm Dr. Vanessa Enoch, and thank you so much.
We lost you, Vanessa.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Kara, for sharing all of that information and your wisdom. We were on a Clubhouse chat, and for those of you who don't know what Clubhouse is, it is a new social media platform. And we were on Clubhouse just yesterday, and one of the ladies on the panel shared with us that because she is a small farmer, she's unregistered, that she cannot gain access to any of that capital. She did not think about or even consider all of the avenues to gain access. However, there are avenues, especially in this new funding vehicle that the US government has now advanced, both through the monies, the $10 billion that's coming through for agriculture, as well as the small business resources that have been advanced. And it'll give local farmers and local communities an opportunity, even if you're interested in starting a farm and you have not already engaged and haven't done that, it'll give you the access to capital to even purchase the land and start a farm. And I think that's important. Moreover, many small businesses just don't have access to the information that they need in order to grow and to be sustainable. One of the things that I have appreciated as I was a candidate for Congress is being able to engage in these conversations and really understand the nature of the challenges that we are all facing. And one of the things on a panel that we did last year in September with farmers, they talked about food security being a national security issue and how we have to, ensure that we bring the production of food back locally, because as anybody knows, you don't give people the opportunity to provide your food, especially if relationships aren't always in the right order, right? We don't want food becoming a challenge. And in addition to that, as our farmers are aging and we no longer have a viable community to hand those farms over to, we have to do with what Mayor Neal talked about, and that is bringing sexy ag, right? Bringing agriculture back as a something that is sexy, that people want to engage in, people want to do. And we can't bring sexy ag without bringing women to the conversation. And many women are engaging in the farm community, and we want to also encourage that. And so it's exciting to have Kara on here talking about farming, and to have Maria talking about farming, and all of the women who have engaged in this conversation today. And we want to continue that conversation. And so as Silvio mentioned, this is the first of many conversations. But I think the most important thing that has happened here is that we've talked about solutions. And I think that that is, one of the most important things that we can do instead of continually talking about the problem. And so we want to bring all of these resources together. We want to bring people into conversations about making things happen and about changing the situation and the status quo as it has been. When we think about who owns the land right now, I believe I just read something that said that Bill Gates owns like 60% of all the farmland that's available right now, if you can imagine. So we have to get back to making sure that people own the land, that farmers and individuals and local growers own their land, because one of the major challenges is that farmers have shared with us is that they can't control their pricing. And so some of the things that have to be considered when we think about the lack of control over pricing is what adds to the high cost of farming. And if they are also having to rent the land, we know it's more costly to rent than it is to own. And so some of the investors who have an interest in helping to gain access to the land, this is a major issue that we have to begin to impact. And so I'm excited that we have so many people here who are all about solutions. And I hope that people who are on here listening hear that there is something that you can do in a way that you can engage to help make an impact and help bring change to this particular issue. So thank you.
And
Can I just add one
Go ahead.
little tiny thing?
Go ahead, Harvey.
And this is not political at all. The new administration seems to understand the history of the difficulty of getting minorities, indigenous, women, the whole thing, what has really happened over the last 50 years. And our team is working very closely now with the various departments within the new administration. Education, they want to train the next generation of farmers. Interior, they want to make sure that the land is available to disadvantaged farmers, even if they move to where they were maybe 30 years ago, make land available to neighborhoods where you want to have gardens in the inner cities and deal with the nutrition deserts that we're talking about. Grow your own food, teach people how to do this. So we are 197% behind all the initiatives that everybody are talking about. And, we can't wait to get going. It's time to get going now. That's all I wanted to say.
Just to piggyback kind of on what Dr. Enoch said and what Harvey said as well, we have to be intentional about marketing farming and not just in the greater sphere, but also in our educational systems, in our elementary schools. We need to expose farming to our children, and so we can grow our farmers from children, and so that they have that in their blood. Because it's a difference when people do things just for money or when they do it from their heart. Because when you do it from your heart, then that's sustainable. And so we have to put farming, we have to put sustainability of life, because food is life. We have to put that back in the hearts of our children.
And that's why we're actually doing this with Miami-Dade. We're working with the Boys and Girls Clubs. We're working with the 4-H, because without wasting any more time, Omar, could not agree with you more, and I think we got to get next step of organized, establish real programs, figure out who's going to do what, and let's go get them.
But we also have to have people at the table who we're trying to talk to. We cannot talk at people. We need to have them at the table as well.
And our guy, Victor Robinson, who Karen knows very well, he actually made that happen. And We're talking to Marcia Fudge, and we're talking to Cedric, Richmond, and, the Department of Interior. So we got to have a plan, but we got to work the plan and execute. It's just that simple.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Back to you, Sil. Silvio? Does this mean I have more airtime? I'm only
goodness gracious.
Can you imagine Harvey, you having more airtime, right? Yeah.
But give me a little dead air, that's a problem.
But let me say this. There are windows of opportunity, and I believe that right now is that moment that we have to move with dispatch to deal with what you're talking about, Harvey. We cannot wait any longer. And so we need to be very intentional with timelines and benchmarks and measures to make sure that these things come to fruition.
Mayor, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So there's two things that I think about, and that is a conversation you and I had about ensuring that we are empowering small farmers and small business people, and as opposed to, you know, going in, extracting resources and going in to have, you know, to gain and not to make sure that those individuals who we touch are empowered, you know, that everybody, there is enough opportunity, it's enough resources, even natural resources, that we can equip and empower and make sure that the people who, you know, we can begin to impact and begin to help incubate and accelerate what they're already doing, that we walk away leaving them in a better position than we found them. And also, I like what you said about the benchmarks. One of the things that Ashi, Haley, and myself has been, you know, working on and discussing is, you know, how do we establish benchmarks that are going to help accelerate these businesses? And we have to look at best practices, which is one of the things that in bringing all of these wonderful speakers together today, it gives us the opportunity to have access to people who have information, people who have experience, and they're already doing some of this stuff, so that we can establish benchmarks. And we have centers of excellence that we can now bring people together who have the capital or have the knowledge, and join them up with people who, you know, like the young lady who said she has an innovative concept that she wants to share with the world here in the chat today, right? She's from Tuskegee, Alabama. And so we want to,
this maybe Shara or Janice, one of the two.
It was Janice,
yes.
I believe.
Right.
And
right.
So we want to take those kinds of ideas and incubate those ideas and accelerate them. You know, if people have concepts and innovations that they want to bring to life, we need to, you know, take a look at those concepts. We need to establish the benchmarks and to make sure that we take those ideas and, you know, we duplicate those ideas across the world. You know, we all want some of Derek's sorbet, right? We all want to, and we want to be healthy. And so we can duplicate some of these concepts and ideas and utilize this as a springboard for those ideas as we begin to not just have these conversations, but as we begin to execute on some of the ideas, and to make sure that we foster continual acceleration. And we can only do that if we move beyond the conversation stage and we move to this this idea of, now let's get the work done, right? Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work.
Well, I said to Silvio before this, and then I'll stop. I think what's most important, this was the first program, and congratulations to Silvio and to Haley and to Marion and whoever else was part of the team that actually put this all together. The next step is, how do we follow up on all of this? So it wasn't just a good feel-good couple of hours on a Friday afternoon, but as Omar said, we create some specific action items, assign some responsibilities, and figure out how to execute stuff. I mean, you know, back to whoever, but how do we make it live?
And I appreciate that, Harvey. And that's what Ashi and Haley and myself have been working on in the background. We've been working on a system that can breathe life into these ideas and to capture this knowledge that so many people have and the resources so many people have, so that, you know, we can accelerate these ideas. You know, I think of all of the big problems that are all surrounding this idea of food security. You know, whether we're talking about aquaculture or climate change, you know, all of those things, even, you know, when you talk about poverty, all of those things are really symptoms of some of the same problems. And not everyone is impacted by food security in the same way. Some people have an abundance while others live in lack. And so we, as responsible citizens of the world, of the globe, we can come together, bring our resources together, and utilize what our capacities to make an impact in the world. And I think that the conversation that Ashi, Haley, and myself have started, and the concept that we've already began to develop is really one that is sustainable and one that can take advantage of all of the knowledge that's shared here to accelerate these ideas globally. And so you'll hear more. We're going to be sitting down at least with everybody on the panel and speaking face to face on a chat, so we can figure out how we can harvest your ideas. And I see Ashi's hands are going
to. Right, I know, and I see Kara's hand. I promise we're going to get to you, I promise. But I just want to let everybody know, we're talking about this concept of this NGO accelerator. I just put a link into the chat to give you a better idea of what the next steps are, the infrastructure, and how to address things of which we've started talking about in terms of concrete and foundation today. So Harvey, to answer your question, there's a link in the chat.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that is a real, that has, I think, have been something very resounding, right? It's like, okay, not just have a conversation and feel good, but let's really galvanize together to drive this forward, right? So I mean, we launched the Blue Economy Club, which we're very active in, right? And that's I think a perfect example of like how we already have a business incubator. We're going to be accepting applications for new solutions and businesses to incubate them, partner with the Founders Institute to accelerate them, and launching a dedicated investment fund to be able to invest into each one of the steps along the way. But that's just some of the things. We do want to have a call to action. In fact, we would love to poll and have your ideas. If you guys have any ideas of what you would like to see as next action steps, put them in the chat. We're going to be able to comb through that next steps, send an email out to everybody that participated, create an enrollment list for anybody that owns a farm so we can pair up farming. And one of my mentors had like, we have what we need, right? The people that have, this is what we have and this is what we need. And then maybe we'll sort through that and match people up, connect different communities, smallholder farmers with maybe distribution and technology, with BAMFX, with Harvey's products. I'm like, just whatever we think that they really might be needed so we can drive the conversation forward. These are just some ideas. I'm just a facilitator. So, I'm not really leading the conversation. You are. So I want to make that clear. And Kara, I want to make sure that we get to you because I know that you have some wisdom to share with us.
Right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate being here today. I want to kind of allude to a little bit of how words matter. And what we're hearing in the $4 billion, well, the $5 billion for emergency relief for farmers of color, it's $4 billion in debt relief. And actually, it's not debt relief, it's loan repayment. And what USDA is offering.
Falta la conexión.
Hello.
Now that's some real live farm stuff right there, guys.
Real embodiment, right?
That was very cool.
No entiendo ni.
That was priceless.
Que venga Sofía, que ponlo y lo ponemos a la.
David, because I think, thank you.
That's Abuelo Antonio coming up online. All right, please continue.
Yeah, so just sorry about that. Just want to make sure that people understand, hindsight is 20/20, and oftentimes when things are said and done, we see the good intention, but the devil is in the details. Mm. And so what we have in the $4 billion repayment is $4 billion going back into USDA. Once that $4 billion is repaid to USDA, how's that money going to come back out? Is it going to come back out 99% to white male farmers, or is it going to come back out 99 or 100% to farmers of color that it was paid in to provide relief for? So I just kind of wanted to hit on that. Also, access to capital is very challenging for new and beginning farmers, especially going to USDA, because they have a requirement of 3 years of experience, day-to-day operation. And they'll say, well, go rent someone else's farm and come back. But oftentimes when land becomes available, you have to seize the moment. And one of the non-traditional ag products that we have available to us is a 70% loan to value. And I'm working with a Black female farmer right now for about $570,000 property, which means she would have to come out of pocket about $180,000, and she just doesn't have that. And so that's, a couple of things I wanted to highlight as an actual farmer and trying to gain access to capital and access to land, but also for those out there in the financial world who may not be aware that agriculture is actually exempt from the Truth in Lending Act. So a lot of people aren't familiar with that.
What does that mean? What does that mean? What are the repercussions, or what is the opportunity there?
Well, that means that lenders don't have to notify borrowers of change in interest rates or even UCC filings.
Oh,
so
wow.
What happened with us is about 60 days after we closed on one of our farms, the lender went to our county and filed a UCC filing saying that they had a claim to our timber on our farm that they were providing financing, but also any property that we acquired in the future that had timber on. And so when we went to acquire a new farm, that's when we discovered it. So that lender, when they filed that UCC filing, that financial statement, putting in against our property and other farms that we may acquire, it's concerning. And I don't understand why agriculture tends to be considered maybe lesser than, or that they don't really need full disclosure. But truth in lending, you would think when it comes to land ownership and liens, that farmers and our properties would be at the forefront. Thank you.
And I want to chime in on something that my godfather shared with me when I was asking him questions about his 15 years in farming as a Latino farmer here in South Florida. And I was like, hey, look, if somebody wants to get into farming, how, like me, myself, and Pedram, right, which we love technology, we love farming, but we don't really own farms. We're not actually farming every day. Best way to get started. And he goes, you need to at least buy an acre. Buy an acre, get an acre of land, and then you register this acre of land with the, somebody help me here, with the department, with the FDA, is it? I think or USDA, US Department of Agriculture, yeah. If you need to get at least 1 acre, and when you have at least an acre, then you can register this with the USDA, and you have to keep this registration active for at least a year, and then report on what you do at that acre. And when you've had that acre for at least a year, then you open up the possibilities of the USDA to support you as a smallholder farmer, right? I think that was the best advice that I was able to distill. He was very reluctant. He's like, hey, look, I'm out of the business now. But I think that was like a very practical thing. It's like, get your hands on land, like you're saying. And when you get the land, register it immediately with the USDA, because it takes a while to build a track record. Kara, I see your hand is up again. And one of the things that I'd like to dovetail into your point, reading your bio, is that he because he successfully and profitably, right, reported on farming 15 years, now he was able to be one of the hemp farmers in Florida, which is a requirement. I don't know if it's a requirement in everywhere in the US, but in Florida, you have to be profitable track record with the USDA of farming 15 years. And I know that you're also in a little bit in the hemp practice. But anyway, just wanted to share that with the audience for today as a takeaway. Kara?
Right. And the thing is, oftentimes, people think of a farmer as being 5, 10, 20 acres and with a tractor. There are urban farms in New York City on rooftops that are making 6 figures. And so, there's no minimum land size requirement. You can be growing in raised beds in your backyard. There's no minimum annual sales. The key there is they want you to have a business plan where you show the potential, keyword potential, to gross $1,000 annually. And those are things that, I help with every day. And we're here I have a workshop I do. It's called Know Before You Go, an Intro to USDA. The thing I'd like to say is that oftentimes business people are familiar with filing a Schedule C, reporting their business income. Farmers file a Schedule F, F as in farm. So if you are farming, if you have grapevines, peach trees, orange trees, anything in your selling agricultural products, even a nursery with cut flowers is a part of agriculture, then you need to report that income on a Schedule F. Thank you.
Interesting. No, super helpful. I think conversation, and I think that basically rounds out our conference for today. Maybe we should open it up for the audience. There's a lot of Q&A, a lot of things happening here. Ashi, Haley, Marion, anything that you would like to see, or our panelists, that you would like to see us do, and actions that you would recommend that we take as concrete next steps. I see we have Abuelo Antonio. Ahí lo veo. Tiene que quitar el micrófono. We're going to ask Governor Abuelo Antonio to unmute, and maybe. Could you try again? Yeah, no, it's not with you, Siri. Not with you. Hola, Abuelo. No escucha. Okay, so I'm going to be translating for Abuelo today. All right, Abuelo. Ya estamos concluyendo, hablando de cómo podemos ser un poco inclusivo con la gente y las comunidades que están empezando a cosechar y produciendo alimentos. Podría compartir con nosotros un poco de su sabiduría. There's a little bit of an echo happening. Parece que hay que quitar un micrófono ahí ahorita porque se está repitiendo lo que estoy diciendo. Okay, thanks, Pedram. Abuelo, ¿podrías compartir alguna sabiduría con el grupo de cómo ser más inclusivo, por ejemplo, con los mayas en la comunidad?
Bueno, la verdad es que mi proyecto, o el proyecto que tenemos aquí en este santuario, es pensado para pensado precisamente para dar servicio comunitario. A través de ese servicio volver a unir tejidos rotos sociales de mucho tiempo y reunir nuevamente a la gente a través de los propios alimentos que se olvidaron, como el vegetarianismo. Y bueno, tratando de rescatar la gastronomía sagrada maya que existe, y tratar de abrir conciencia a través de la alimentación bien balanceada, que ellos aprendan la nutrición sagrada. Y bueno, el proyecto que tenemos aquí es el proyecto de saberes ancestrales. Estos saberes son parte de conocimientos muy antiguos. Estoy trabajando con un ingeniero chichimeca, que es un sabio, el ingeniero Pablo Irineo, y él viene también trayendo muchos conocimientos de ancianos, en donde las estructuras casi no cuestan, porque trabajamos unidos y porque trabajamos tomando los materiales que están en la naturaleza, por un lado. Y por otro lado, también obtenemos agua de la madre tierra, de las fuentes naturales que tiene y que estamos usando para fines no lucrativos, dándole valor más al ser humano, al ser de la conciencia divina, planetaria que somos todos, y pensar así en la paz de mantener la mente tranquila, de que nuestros alimentos están seguros, porque todos trabajamos para alimentar a todos. O sea, sí, yo sé que el dinero es una energía, más en las comunidades ya no está contado.
Abuelo, una pausa ahí para poder traducirle al resto de la comunidad.
Silvio, could you translate a little bit?
¿Usted quiere servir de traductora, señora?
Sí, claro, sí, gracias.
Okay, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Yes, I was saying that the main purpose of planting is to recognize the value of Mother Earth and the connection with humanity and all the alive plants, all the souls that exist on Mother Earth. And it's not really a matter of money, but it's a matter of giving and reuniting again the broken tissue in the communities as well has happened in the cities. It's the time for the humanity to come back to nature and to reorganize again with a different point of view. It's a view of a new humanity, the new era, the era of nature, respect for the air and all the souls that exist on the planet. And here in our sacred place, the Mayan lands, the Mayans, they have all the knowledge about how to be in peace and harmony with nature. And this is what the Mayan can offer to all the world. With so much love. And here we are at School of Permaculture and Sustainability, where everybody from all around the world, they can come to join and learn how is working in alliance with the Chichimeca tradition down with the elder Pablo Irineo Salamanca. That is the creator here of the Permaculture School.
Gracias. Gracias.
No.
Adelante, abuelo.
Adelante, abuelo. Bueno, y también viendo las nuevas tecnologías, por ejemplo, la ingeniería territorial.
Also talking about the new technologies, the territorial land.
La ingeniería social.
The social engineering, the land engineering.
Para ver ya no a las diferentes tipos de gente que habita en un lugar o en varias regiones.
For having a different point of view, like watching a person that lives in a different region or places.
Sino interesarnos un poco más de la esencia de la conciencia nuestra.
But to be more interested about the essence of consciousness.
De reconocer que los que habitamos en un territorio,
that the ones that we live in a territory,
somos responsables de ese territorio mismo.
We are responsible of that land.
Y es necesario pensar
and it's necessary to think
en la nutrición
in nutrition
de la tierra,
of Mother Earth,
de las aves, de los
of
animales
the
salvajes,
animals, of the birds, of
y
the
también
wild,
de todos los seres
all the souls also
que habitamos en ese territorio.
that we live in all the land.
Es la conciencia que estamos recordando de los pueblos para vivir en paz y armonía con prosperidad.
To live in peace and harmony and prosperity.
Amazing. So let's remember that we're caretakers of the land, and that we are stewards of the land that we live in, and that the land is not just the land, but it is inclusive of the animals and the beings and the plants, not that are a part of it, and that we are merely a part of that chain, or I should say, a part of that process of caretaking it and generating it for the future generations, so that it may be able to continue to nourish our mind, our bodies, and our spirit.
So Silvio, can I make a suggestion? Just a little suggestion.
Go ahead.
I think that maybe, everybody's been on about 3 hours. I think that a lot of the things have been said. And I think that what we should do now is I think we should, if people are ready to kind of get to the end, we should have some internal discussions, try to come up with a couple of action plans, and then build a consensus, with this group, and as the group expands, to get some real projects with a timeline, as Omar said, with a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that we could then show that we're making progress to what we all want to do. What do you think, so?
Absolutely, I think that's part of the plan. Perfect. So guys, yes, this is the end of the conference, right on time. Harvey, you're right on cue, actually, so thank you for that. Abuelo, ¿quisieras hacer alguna idea, alguna bendición, alguna conclusión para este congreso que puedas compartir para nosotros en este día? ¿Y alguna intención para próximos pasos para poder seguir?
Bueno, para empezar,
To start,
demostrarte y hacerte sentir y a todos los que escuchan
to show you and make you feel, you and all the people who are listening right now.
To start, to make us think and feel, un poquito el micrófono ahí más cerca, pero sí, to start and make us feel, we're going to conclude here with Abuelo Antonio.
Gratitude.
de gratitud de tener la vida en ese instante.
To stop life in this moment.
So our gratefulness for life in this moment.
Y poder compartir
And to be able to share
pues el amor de este momento.
the love of this moment.
Y bueno, pues lo que se dice que se requieren programas, planes, por
And
supuesto.
it's been said that it's necessary to make plans.
Nosotros en la próxima
course.
semana ya vamos a tener
We in the next
los
week, we
programas
are
a
going to
través
have
de
the
ingeniería
programs through the engineering
para optimizar la
to
producción
optimize the production
de plantaciones
of plantation
y también para mejorar nuestro ecosistema.
and also to improve our ecosystem.
Entonces estamos amando,
So
estamos
we are loving.
amor en acción para todos.
This is love in action for all.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Bendiciones.
Bless you.
Hey yo, aho, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Love in action, guys. Let's enjoy this moment of action. I think that this is ultimately what we're here for, and what we, it's. I think the ultimate expression of love is food, and I think that's what we're here for. We'll be sending out an email and next steps for you guys to volunteer your time, your energy, to connect everybody together, to share best practices, to build a community. As Abuelo Antonio and everybody here shared, we're all here because we all care, and we're all really showing this love in action. Gracias, Abuelo, por esa palabra tan linda.
May I just say one last thing? For those that are on the call that are investment oriented, I have been an investment banker for a long time before I started this company, and I would say to you that the world of agriculture and feeding the population and bringing technology to it and improving people's lives is an area that you seriously should consider becoming a part of your investment portfolio. Because at the end of the day, there's no seasonality to growing food. Without food, there is no life. And so, as a mentor, I was thinking about growing my hair longer. I don't know if I could do that because it looks great. but I would say that we are grateful. Investors should look seriously at the agricultural industry. And I know that Silvio and his team are focused on that area. We are a client of theirs. We work with them, and we want to bring value to the investor and value to the planet and value to humanity. So thank you, Silvio and team, for setting up this meeting today. We are grateful.
It's our great pleasure. A big shout out to Ashi, to Haley, to Marion, to Andrea, to John, Harvey. Thank you for inspiring me to start this conference. And I can't thank all of you, especially Marion and Haley and Andrea, for working so hard and tirelessly to make sure that we put this together. It's worked out more beautifully than I could have imagined. It's so beautiful to galvanize all together with this love in action. So this concludes our first Earthshot in the Earthshot series, focused on food security and social inclusion. May this be the first of many. And we have the wisdom that we need and the strength that we need and the resources we need to carry forth what we all share and we all care about. Thank you guys so much. Please sign up and follow our LinkedIn groups, our website, and our newsletters so you can find out more about all our amazing partners and help us make a difference in the world. Thank you so much. That concludes our first Earthshot series, guys. Big round of applause to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Thanks, Silvio.
Okay.
Silvio.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a wonderful
Bye-bye.